Tonight, central bank suspends sale of foreign exchange to bureau de change operators, accuses them of being money laundering agents and vows to deal ruthlessly with erring banks. Governor Wike advocates technology-driven military operations as the Nigerian Army commences Combat Support Arms Training Week in Rivers State. 884 candidates admitted into the Nigerian legal profession. Chairman of Body of Benchers asked them to shun acts capable of impeding the course of justice. And emotions run high as 4 officers testify on their experience during the Capitol riots of January the 6th before the U.S. House of Representatives Investigatory Committee. Plus, we have business sports news from Abuja and later, international news from our studio in London. And it may no longer be business as usual for bureau de change operators in the country as the central bank has discontinued the sale of foreign exchange to them. This was the major highlight at today's briefing by the CBN Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, on the outcome of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting. Mr. Emefiele accused BDC operators of facilitating illicit financial flows and money laundering in the country.
This is the 4th Monetary Policy Committee meeting by the Central Bank of Nigeria this year. Rising from the 2-day meeting, the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, reels out the Monetary Policy Committee decisions pertaining to the foreign exchange market. The Apex Bank boss gives commercial banks the marching orders on the sale of forex, vowing that they will be monitored closely henceforth.
The Central Bank will henceforth discontinue the sale of foreign exchange to bureau de change operators. B. The bank will no longer process or issue new licenses for BDC operations in the country. This stoppage extends to all licenses being currently processed regardless of the stage of that processing. The public should note that once a customer provides the basic documentation to purchase foreign exchange, all banks must immediately, either on demand or within a stipulated time frame, sell foreign exchange to the customer. Any customer who does not receive foreign exchange along these lines must report this to their bank, and where they are unsatisfied with the resolution, they are required, indeed they must, contact the CBN on our toll-free line.
Threatening to deal ruthlessly with banks that work with these operators, the CBN governor adds that this move is to safeguard the nation's currency. He also has some words for those he claims are collaborating with the bureau de change operators.
We will deal ruthlessly with the Nigerian banks who have acted as collaborators with these illegal forex dealers. We will deal with them ruthlessly because they have allowed their banking and payment system infrastructure to be used to facilitate this illegal dealing in foreign exchange. As for those foreign organizations involved, we will report them to their regulators. We will write to those organizations seeking their understanding and that they must desist. If they seek to operate in Nigeria, they must go through the right channels through which they must procure either foreign exchange or procure naira for their domestic operations.
The decision to stop forex sales to the BDCs, the central bank governor says, will stop the greedy attitudes of these operators who have left their purpose of being retailers and have become illegal dealers.
Staying with the Central Bank Monetary Policy Committee, it also unanimously voted to retain the MPR at 11.5%. The MPC also retained the cash reserve ratio at 27.5% and liquidity ratio at 30%, just as it did in the month of May. Earlier, Mr. Emefiele gave reasons for the decision to leave key rates unchanged, stating that raising it would hinder the recovery of the economy.
The MPC made the decision to hold all parameters constant, believing that a hold stance will enable the continued permeation of current policy measures in supporting the recorded growth recovery and macroeconomic stability. The committee thus decided by a unanimous vote to retain the monetary policy rate at 11.5%. In summary, MPC voted to 1. Retain MPR at 11.5%, 2. Retain asymmetric corridor at plus 100 and minus 700 basis points around the MPR, 3. Retain the CRR at 27.5%, and 4. Retain the liquidity ratio at 30%.
Well, joining us for more on the highlights of today's briefing by the CBN Governor on the news at 10 is Mr. Bismarck Rewane. He is the Chief Executive Officer, Financial Derivatives Company Limited. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First, let's get your reactions to the measure by the CBN stopping the sale of FX to BDC operators. Why is this coming now?
Firstly, let us understand what this is all about. The Bureau de Changes are financial intermediaries between the Apex Bank, the market, and the retail segment. Now, what had happened in the past was that these guys were supposed to sell foreign exchange principally to people who are traveling out of the country, buying from tourists that are coming in, and also actually filling up that gap because of the lack of financial inclusion. But, unwittingly, this had become a major source of concern to the regulators, and rightly so. So what had happened was that these guys would buy foreign exchange at 400 naira, and an hour later sell it at 500 naira. So in 2000, we had 74 BDC operators. By 2010, it had increased 27-fold. In other words, we now had, from 74, we had 2,000 operators. By 2020, they had gone up to 5,000. In the last quarter, the federal government of Nigeria spent, in other words, the central bank, spent more on travel, that is, on tourism, actually $472 million, than debt service, $173 million. No country in the world can survive that kind of hemorrhage. So, rightfully, the central bank had to take steps. Some have argued that, after all, they were licensed by the Central Bank of Nigeria in the first place. But that's water under the bridge. The reality is that what was happening was blatant daylight robbery, mind my French, rape. Now, so what steps to be taken? Step number 1 is to stop everything as they are, right? So which is administrative controls. But the problem is that the moment you stop things administratively, you now create a further black market premium. So people are going to be inconvenienced. The central bank says, go to the banks. Yes, I agree with the central bank governor. But you and I know that walking into a bank and coming out within 5 minutes, it's easier to put 50 flies in a matchbox than to go into a bank and come out in 5 minutes. Right? So anything that is cumbersome, that's inconvenient, will push people further away from the system. So people would suffer. The ultimate solution, and I recommend, is that, look, we know the power market rate every day. So it's 505 today, maybe 500 naira. The central bank should encourage people to go to the banks, 1, but should sell to the Bureau de Changes at the power market rate less 5%. In other words, if the power market is 500, sell to the Bureau de Changes at 490. The 10 naira margin is way, way lower than the 100 naira margin, right? So the central bank was spending $100 million a week, $440 million a month, and $5 billion a year for travels when there was COVID restrictions. By the time you pay for your COVID test here, pay there, come back, and the cost is immense. So, yeah, this was not tenable one and was not sustainable. So that is the important thing you have to note.
So what do you think would happen? Because you've made this recommendation, your suggestion on the solution, but with the decision they've taken, would this snowball into something worse?
No, nothing is cast in stone. The truth is that administrative solutions have their limits. It will be abused one way or the other. So the best thing to do is to have a market solution and an administrative solution working together. Let the banks, if you want to buy your PTA and you have your documents, go to the banks. You can find the time to do that. If you are in a hurry to do anything, you're a trader or whatever, you're a smuggler, because it's a smuggler's dream come true, go and pay the market. The fact that the price has increased means that the demand will fall. And therefore, I think that will bring some stability. But in the meantime, we must agree that something had to be done. No country could have gone along this way.
The MPC also decided to leave its rates unchanged to sustain economic recovery. Are you happy with the parameters?
Yes. The truth is that the recovery, as what we say, Nigeria is moving but struggling. The rate of growth is 0.5% in Q1. At best in Q2, it will come out at about 2.6, 2.7%. Still below the population growth rate. Still tepid, but it's moving in the right direction, but very slowly. What needs to be done is to actually have a solution that deals with lack of investment, low capital formation. So to do that, you have a catch-22 situation where you need to bring up interest rates in the final analysis sometime to increase savings, and when savings increase, there will be investment. But in the meantime, because there are cost pushing, and you don't want monetary policy to complement fiscal policy. The fiscal policy is to stimulate growth at this time. The president signed yesterday before going to the UK, signed the supplementary budget. That's a stimulus plan. So what I see the central bank doing is to try and go in what I call this, go pro-cyclically with the fiscal authorities, but go counter-cyclically with the economy. In other words, trying to encourage growth and encourage, because we have high unemployment, we have high inflation. Even though official inflation is supposed to be declining, the truth is that there are signs that that may not be right.
And I want us to talk about commodities and
Yes.
how the prices are really going up. I know that in one of the slides here you talked about how it appears that Nigerians are eating less. 1 in 2 Nigerians are eating less now. And is this bound to get worse, especially with what we have?
They say when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. We took 11 commodities between June and July. Not, if we do year on year, it's much more. Between June and July, and look at the result. Yam, new yam, up 15% to 1,500. Gari, up 3.6% to 17,000 naira a bag. Beans, up 34,000, right? 6.25%. Look at onions. Onions up 27,000 naira a bag. The biggest culprit is pepper. Pepper is up 50% from 20,000 to 30,000. Not talk of flour, cement, chicken, rice, tomatoes, eggs. So things are getting tough. And that is why they said 1 in 2 Nigerians is eating less quantity and less quality at a time of COVID, where you need the best immunity and best resistance. So that's difficult. Not only that, 1 in 4 Nigerians is buying less of non-food items. In other words, refrigerators and things like that. So what is important to note is that food is impulsive buying. You buy it on impulse. But even in non-impulsive purchases, you are actually reducing the amount you are consuming. So what do you need to do? You have to put money in the hands of people. You need to give them jobs. You need to do things. And they are impeded by security problems, insurgency. So there's a combination of things that are affecting people. But let's go back to the primary mandate of the central bank. The Central Bank of Nigeria says that price stability mandate. So we've seen official inflation moderating. We've seen exchange rate stability, right? Because the official rate has been moved to 411. So there's some crawling peg, static peg arithmetic going on there. Boosting investor confidence, slowly but a bit mixed signals. But complementing fiscal policy is important. Now the question is, what next and what happens? What should Nigerians look out for?
If you can summarize that in 30 seconds.
I will do that. Oil prices will stay above $70. Oil brought us where we are, and we need oil to take us out. 2, GDP growth is not going to be great, but at least positive. The exchange rate will remain sticky and become an issue. I suspect and I expect that the central bank will revise this thing so that there's no hardship to the people. But we'll sanitize the system and then make sure that things happen. But finally, the biggest risk is that only 1% of Nigerians have been vaccinated. something has to be done to increase the vaccination in a hurry. Because in Senegal, they have 99% occupancy in the bed in the hospitals, and people are dying on the streets, and that's just around the corner. I think airline tickets will increase, so it's going to be a tough Q3, but hopefully Q4 will be better as we go into the Christmas.
I'd like to thank you, Mr. Bismarck Rouhani, Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you for having me.
In part two, after the break, President warns State House staff against divulging official secrets. Plus, Governor Wike urges military to adopt tech-based operations for greater effectiveness. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the News at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Central Bank suspends sale of foreign exchange to bureau de change operators, accuses them of being money laundering agents, and vows to deal ruthlessly with erring banks. Governor Wike advocates technology-driven military operations as the Nigerian Army commences Combat Support Arms Training Week in Rivers State. Governor Wike advocates technology-driven military operations as the Nigerian Army commences Support Arms Training Week in the state. 884 candidates admitted into the Nigerian legal profession. Chairman Body of Benches asked them to shun acts capable of impeding the course of justice. And emotions run high as 4 officers testify on their experience during the Capitol riots of January the 6th before the U.S. House of Representatives Investigatory Committee. And the presidency has vowed to sanction any of its staff who divulges classified information to the public. Permanent Secretary of the State House, Tijani Umar, issued the warning during the administration of oath of secrecy to 42 staff of the presidency who handle classified documents. Mr. Umar stressed that leaking classified information without authorization was a grievous offense and that there are clear consequences for serving and retired officers who breached the code. He added that the government will continue to follow and keep them under the radar because their work is critical to guarantee continuous delivery of national service. And President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to make a presentation in the United Kingdom Thursday, July 29, reviewing the state of Nigeria's education sector, especially as it affects out-of-school children in the country. The special advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, gave the hint while speaking with our London correspondent, Juliana Olainka, on the heels of the President's trip to attend the Global Education Summit on Financing Global Partnership for Education 2021 to 2025.
Reason the Nigerian government, led by the President, is here is to take part in the Global Partnership for Education. Now, there would then be a side meeting, a bilateral meeting with the British Prime Minister. As natures of bilaterals go, you don't disclose things they are going to discuss before such meeting will happen. It's going to be a meeting between our President and the British Prime Minister. The President is going to make a major presentation on Thursday at the event, and he would naturally be reviewing developments in the sector in Nigeria. We know that out-of-school children, the figure dropped and keeps dropping. So it shows that it's work in progress in Nigeria. So he will review what the situation was, what had been done, what is being done, and likely expectations in future. When the insecurity facing the country is effectively and conclusively tackled, then our schools will be safer. So it's a big problem in Nigeria, but it's a problem that is being faced.
Away from the presidency, latest reports coming from Benin Republic reveals that the embattled Yoruba Nation agitator, Mr. Sunday Adeyemo, widely known as Sunday Igboho, has denied claims by the Nigerian government that he was trafficking arms and inciting violence in Nigeria. According to his lead counsel, Ibrahim Salami, Igboho, during the court proceedings in Benin Republic, said the Nigerian government rather put him on a watch list for resisting killer herdsmen. Igboho, who maintains he has no criminal record in Nigeria, told the judge he has neither been invited, arrested, nor jailed by the police in Nigeria for any offense, adding that he ran away from the country because the government was after his life. Mr. Igboho is now being tried by the Benin court on fresh charges bordering on illegal migration, dubious connivance with immigration officers, and an attempt to cause civil unrest. However, the court has granted him access to medical care and ordered that he be transferred to another detention facility. The development is seen as some kind of reprieve by Igboho's lawyers, who have been on a legal battle to have the activist released on bail, but the Nigerian government wants him extradited. Igboho and his wife had been arrested in Cotonou July 19th while they tried to catch a flight to Germany. But the court on Thursday ordered his wife's release and returned him to police custody. The River State Governor, Nyesom Wike, is appealing to the military to be deliberate in formulating policies that will encourage the use of technology in their operations. Governor Wike stated this at the Nigerian Army's Combat Support Arms Training Week in Port Harcourt, flagged off by the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahya. He noted that the art of fighting insecurity is dynamic and that only countries with superior military technologies are better positioned to win the battle.
Governor Nyesom Wike's mission as he arrives the Obiwali International Center in Port Harcourt, the River State capital, is more than just to inspect this parade. The reason can be found inside the hall where top army brass, including the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahya, are gathered. It's the flag-off of this year's Combat Support Arms Training Week, which is set out to better prepare officers and men in combating security threats. Declaring open the week-long training, the Chief of Army Staff pledges to improve on the recent technological innovations of the Nigerian Army Signal Corps to reposition the force.
I am glad to observe the significant progress made by the Combat Support Arms in patronizing local vendors. A case in point is the domestication of production of some of our equipment currently deployed for operational use. This, alongside other innovations and inventions, have further enhanced the Nigerian Army's capacity and capability at defeating the adversary.
And the State Chief Executive Officer advocates a new approach in military operations in the country.
All over the world, countries are rapidly modernizing their armies, increasing their weapon systems lethality, and strengthening the efficiency and combat readiness in response to the increasingly changing nature of the modern time battlefield. Nigeria cannot be different if we're interested in having a military force that can easily deter external aggression, meet our international and regional military objectives, as well as defeat internal installations and existential threats to national security.
Besides training, the Army Chief is concerned about the role the armed forces play in a democratic dispensation.
Let me also remind all personnel that you must continue to conform to the tenets of democracy and promote democratic values at all times. You must therefore continue to remain apolitical and uphold military professionalism in the discharge of your duties.
Defending the country from external aggression and restoring order in cases of insurrection are the major responsibilities being executed by the Nigerian Army under several military operations since its formation.
And the Nigerian Law School has admitted 884 candidates into the Nigerian bar after passing their final bar examinations. According to the Director General of the Nigerian Law School, out of 1,561 students who sat for the 2020 final bar exams, only 880 students passed, while the remaining 4 students were from the previous call. The event, which took place at the Eagle Square, Abuja, attracted legal luminaries, including the Attorney General of the Federation. Chairman of the body of benches, Honorable Justice Olabode Rhodes Vaivo, urged candidates to be diligent and forthright at all times.
Another set of new wigs joining the legal profession in Nigeria. 1,561 candidates sat for the 2020 bar finals examination, but only 888 passed and are to be admitted in addition to 4 from the previous call. Present to witness the event is the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami, members of the Body of Benchers, the Nigerian Bar Association and the Council of Legal Education, among others. The Director General of the Nigeria Law School, Professor Isa Chiroma, says the candidates have shown to be worthy of their call.
I've closely monitored these aspirants during their training, and I vote for each and every one of them as men and women of learning and character.
You may now put on your wigs.
The chairman of the Body of Benchers, Justice Olabode Rhodes Vivo, however, has a charge for the new wigs.
From January to July 2021, 3 lawyers were disbarred. 6 lawyers were suspended, ranging from 2 years to 4 years, and 1 lawyer was admonished. You are therefore advised to be of good behavior and abide by the ethics and tradition of the profession to avoid being brought before the committee.
It's a moment of joy for the new barristers and solicitors who are hoping to contribute their quota to the legal system in Nigeria.
I expect to get a good job, start doing well in the legal field, help in the little way I can, yeah.
After all the stress and hard work, so today I can now be fully addressed as barrister Nedu Mungozi Elizabeth. I'm so happy.
From its inception in 1962, the Nigerian Law School has graduated a total of 126,000 students, with 6,000 said to be graduated annually from the various branches of the school in Nigeria. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
And when the news at 10 returns, Senate postpones indefinitely further hearing on the assault case against the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal. Plus central bank governor sees broad improvement for Nigeria's economy in the second half of 2021. That's on Business News. Do join us again. Let's go over to our Abuja studios where Markwe Ogun Yusuf has some more stories. Hello, Markwe.
Hello, Millicent. We begin at the National Assembly, where the Senate is retreating from a further hearing of the case of assault brought by petitioner Mr. Clement Sagwat against the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal, Mr. Danladi Umar. The Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petition, which is tasked with investigating the assault case, says Mr. Umar has obtained an originating summon from the court, challenging the jurisdiction of the Senate and its committee to continue the case of assault brought before it. The committee, however, insists that Mr. Umar's action amounts to usurping the powers of the National Assembly. Our correspondent Linda Kigbe reports.
For the past 3 months, the Senate Committee on Ethics has attempted to investigate assault allegations against the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal, Mr. Danladi Umar. A video surfaced online in March showing the CCT chairman allegedly assaulting a security guard at the Banex Plaza in Abuja. The victim, Mr. Clement Sagwat, petitioned the Senate asking the upper chamber to investigate the alleged assault by the CCT chairman. But the investigation by the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions has consistently hit brick walls. First, the CCT chairman, at his earliest appearance before the committee, begged for time to study the petition.
I'll be most obliged if you can give me a week or so to be able to respond to this.
Mr. Umar declined to show up at the next invitation, citing illness. And at a subsequent hearing, his attorney told the committee that Mr. Umar filed a suit at the Federal High Court in Abuja on July 13th to challenge the constitutional powers of the Senate to conduct an investigative hearing on the assault case.
The papers you brought, that summon has no effect on hearing this case before Nigerians. Because it's an afterthought, an attempt to ambush justice.
However, at the resumption of the hearing on Tuesday, the committee is taking a new stand on the case, but it's a position which the lawyer to the petitioner disagrees with.
The committee hereby ruled that we will set aside this particular case, sine die, pending the determination of the case in court that Senate has a right to hear this case. It is a mere process, a mere court process served on the Senate. Now, the only thing that can stop the Senate of this country from going on with this hearing is an order, a valid order of a court of competent jurisdiction.
Members of the committee are not the only ones waiting to see the outcome of the case in court. The alleged victim, his legal team and the public observing the case to see the conclusion. Linda Akibi, Channels Television News.
In Zamfara State, police authorities have been given details on the attack by bandits on travelers along the Sokoto-Gusau Road on Sunday, saying 9 travelers were abducted and not 60. Spokesperson of the Zamfara State Police Command, Mr. Mohammed Shehu, explained in a statement that a large number of armed bandits blocked a Toyota bus belonging to the Sokoto State Mass Transit and abducted 11 passengers who were traveling from Sokoto to Abuja in Bokoro local government area of the state. According to him, police tactical operatives attached to Operation Restore Peace were alerted and they quickly mobilized to the location and dislodged the hoodlums. He explained that the operatives further embarked on a search and rescue operation in the surrounding bush with a view to rescuing the kidnapped victims, and in the process, 2 of the passengers were abandoned by the hoodlums, adding that the command is currently employing various search and rescue strategies aimed at rescuing the victims safely. Meanwhile, the federal government has handed over 4 additional rehabilitated sectors of the trimming project, which is an irrigation scheme around the Hadejia Valley, to farmers in Jigawa State. The Minister of Water Resources, Suleiman Adamu, handed over the project in Yamadi, Auyo local government area of the state. According to him, the beneficiaries, who are farmers, are now responsible for the maintenance of the 2,000-hectare project.
Jigawa State in northwest Nigeria is blessed with arable land, with 80% of its population engaged in agriculture. Over the years, the federal government, with the support of the World Bank through the trimming project, embarked on the rehabilitation of 15,000 hectares of the irrigation scheme in Hadejia Valley in Jigawa State. Many farmers have begun reaping from the giant project.
Sai cikin dare wani lokacin ma sai dai ka kwan a gonarka domin ka samu ruwa, amma yanzu ga hinan ruwa ko da wani time ka zo za ka buga ruwanka ka yi bayin gonarka ka koma.
The farmers are celebrating in style as the federal government formally hands over 2,000 hectares of the irrigation scheme.
Starting with rehabilitating existing schemes that are dilapidated and expanding them where possible. So we are working in 5 states. Jigawa State here happens to be one. This is the Hadejia Valley irrigation scheme where we are doing about 6,000 hectares.
According to the Minister of Water Resources, after the handing over, the responsibility of maintaining the irrigation scheme is now in the hands of the farmers.
Farmers are the ones that own the land. They are the ones that are benefiting directly. So they have a bigger stake in ensuring that the system is maintained and sustained.
The Jigawa State Governor is optimistic that with the completion of the project, the gross domestic product of the state will improve significantly.
This is really remarkable, and you have seen this is adding yet another production to our already existing agricultural production by 6,000 hectares that will be cultivated at least twice, so which means 1,200 hectares cultivation per annum added to what we are producing in Jigawa State. This will significantly increase our GDP.
This is Yamadi in Auyo local government area of Jigawa State, one of the communities that are expected to benefit from the trimming project. Farmers here have already begun planting for the season. And with the completion of this project, the farmers are hopeful that they would get better yield as against previous seasons.
And to a bit of politics now. Ahead of the Congresses and National Convention of the All Progressives Congress, some members of the party under the aegis of APC Progressive Youth Movement are calling on the leadership of the party to shelve the idea of electing candidates through the consensus option. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, spokesperson of the youth, Mrs. Zara Audu, says the idea of a consensus candidate is an undemocratic decision capable of causing serious disharmony within the party. The group also appealed to all young stakeholders not to vote for candidates who are over the age of 50 in the forthcoming Congresses and National Convention. Well, that's all from the nation's capital. It's back now to you, Millicent.
Thanks, Markwe. Now, the Lagos State Governor, Mr. Babatunde Sanwo-Olu, has sworn in the newly elected local government chairman and vice chairman who emerged winners in Saturday's council elections. During the ceremony at the Lagos House, Alawase Ikeja, Governor Sanwo-Olu challenged them to put the people first in decision-making. He also asked them to give their best and ensure that the benefits of democracy get to the people.
You have been elected to serve the people and put them first in all that you do. And you have a responsibility to ensure that you do not let them down in any way or form. Right from the first day in office, I want to implore you to start thinking about the kind of legacy you would like to leave behind when your tenure comes to an end, because it will surely come to an end one day. Let me use this opportunity to emphasize the need for continuity and progress in governance. I urge you all to ensure that you build on the good legacies laid by your predecessors, and also ensure that you surpass the legacies and the expectations of the people who have enthusiastically elected you into these offices. The policies and the programs you will be implementing must be people-centric. It must focus on how to improve the life and the livelihood of our people. I therefore implore you all to continue with the provisions and the facilitation of service that will directly and positively impact the lives of the ordinary citizens on the street within your various communities.
Business News is up next. Here's Melinda Kilami.
Many thanks, Millicent. Welcome to Business News. The governor of Nigeria's central bank, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, has given an optimistic forecast for the country's economy in the second half of 2021. Speaking at the end of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the CBN in the nation's capital, Abuja, Mr. Emefiele pointed out that the global vaccine rollout in progress. He expects an upward movement in economic activities later this year.
Available data and forecasts for key macroeconomic variables for the Nigerian economy suggest a broad improvement for the rest of the year. This is hinged on continued progress with the containment of the pandemic, as well as ongoing monetary and fiscal support. As a result, the Nigerian economy is forecast to grow in 2021 by 3.45%, CBN estimate, 3%, Federal Government of Nigeria estimate, and 2.5% IMF estimate. Committee's consideration.
The Abdul Samad Rabiu Africa Initiative has awarded a 1 billion naira infrastructure grant to the University of Benin, Edo State, as part of its 2021 tertiary education grant scheme. Speaking during the presentation, the Managing Director of ASR Africa, Mr. Ubong Udo, commended the Vice Chancellor and Council members of the university for their commitment to ensuring the highest standards in tertiary education. With this grant, University of Benin becomes the 5th Nigerian university to receive a grant award of 1 billion naira from the ASR Africa Tertiary Education Grant Scheme. The ASR initiative is the brainchild of the founder and executive chairman of Buhari Group, Mr. Abdul Samad Rabiu.
The Tertiary Education Grant Scheme is a $1 billion grant provided to universities across the country. We started with 6 universities, one from each geopolitical zone, and we used a specific set of criteria. We used the formula grant system. We used some criteria, of course, to be able to select these 6 from the very many universities which we have across the country. Geopolitical zone, of course, was one, and then we looked at other things. Things like developmental, indices, ranking, student population, gender inclusion, and I can say very proudly that University of Benin, of course, we've seen a female vice chancellor and deputy vice chancellor scored very high in very many of these, especially for the cause of gender. This grant has already been awarded to 5 other universities, to 4 others, this is the 5th, and we have always been received very well. I can also want to just thank you now, especially for the kind considerations you provided for us in getting us from the airport and making us comfortable. We really appreciate that. So we discussed, madam, and over time, what we intend to use the grant for. So we have certain criteria also that we use to select projects. Of course, we don't presuppose to tell the schools what we want to do with the money. We go through a process of a needs assessment where the school will tell us, the institution will tell us what their needs are, and then we sit together and see through this and run it through a prioritization filter and select what we feel both of us agree will be the most impactful, the most relevant, will be most accessible, will provide the largest and broader impact and long-term benefits to the institution and to the students and staff.
The National Insurance Commission has approved the new board and management of Nikon Insurance Limited and Nigeria Reinsurance Corporation. The new board of Nikon Insurance Limited has Mr. Lamis Foyd as its chairman and Dr. Henry Ationu as the managing director and chief executive officer. Similarly, the board of Nigeria Insurance Corporation has Mr. Mela Nunge as chairman and Mr. Benga Falekulu as the managing director and chief executive officer. The changes in the board of the 2 insurance companies are sequel to their takeover by the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, APCON, and the Bureau for Public Enterprises, BPE. Nikon Insurance was originally owned by the federal government, while Nigeria Reinsurance Corporation was set up under the Nigeria Reinsurance Corporation Act number 49 of 1977. The local stock market failed to extend the gains recorded in the previous session as a 6.7% sell pressure on MTN Nigeria shares brought the bear back to life at the close of Tuesday's trading session. Amy John Mekwa tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Trading closed in the negative today, bringing the bear back to the floor of the NGX. While the all-share index shares 0.12%, and activity chart was in the red. Volume, value, and deals were lower than Monday's session. Uendo, however, made it to the top advances again. Its share price was up 9.86%, closing at 4.79 naira. Top trades had Access and Wema Bank, both adding about 220 million naira to the total value of today's trade. The market lost about 24 billion naira from its overall value, wiping off the gains of yesterday. But more corporate earnings results should boost investors' appetite and bring the bull back to the market. That's the Stock Market Report. I'm Ini John Mekwa.
Let's hope we'll have some more green numbers tomorrow. It's back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Melinda. And 47 out of the 48 protesters arrested by the Nigerian police during the Yoruba Nation rally held July 3, 2021 in Lagos State have been released from detention after meeting their bail conditions. Confirming the development to our correspondent, the Lagos State Police Command, PRO Muyiwa Adejobi, says their trial continues despite the bail. A magistrate court in Yaba, Lagos State, had on July 19 granted bail to the Yoruba Nation agitators. However, one of the protesters, Obatunde Bakare, was not released. And it was an emotional day for 4 police officers testifying before the Democratic-led House of Representatives Investigatory Committee today about their experience during the Capitol riots on January 6. One of the officers said he feared he would be crushed by the mob. Another spoke of being racially abused, and another went on to criticize Republicans for what he described as their continuous shocking attempts to ignore or destroy the truth about that day. Well, here's Simon Pusey with more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The first person to be charged under Hong Kong's controversial national security law has been found guilty. Tong Ying Kit was found guilty of inciting secession and terrorism after riding a motorbike into police officers and flying a flag calling for Hong Kong's liberation. More than 100 people have been arrested since the law came into force in 2019, which reduces Hong Kong's autonomy and makes it easier to punish activists. The trial's verdict means Tong could face life in jail. The 24-year-old was arrested for his actions during the pro-democracy protests last year that lasted for several weeks. Tunisian President Kais Saied has extended a nighttime curfew for the next month, a day after he suspended parliament. Mr. Saied also sacked more government ministers in the wake of the dismissal of Prime Minister Hichem Mechichi on Sunday. The president has denied accusations by the biggest political party, Ennahda, that he carried out a coup, insisting he acted according to the constitution. Mr. Saied urged people not to take to the streets to protest. Dozens of Afghan soldiers have returned to Afghanistan after taking refuge in Pakistan last week. The 46 soldiers had sought refuge after losing control of military positions across the border following advances by Taliban insurgents. Hundreds of Afghan army soldiers and civil officials have fled to neighbouring Tajikistan, Iran and Pakistan in recent weeks after Taliban offensives in border areas. At least 6 police officers in India have died after police from 2 states fired at each other. The unusual incident happened along the border between Assam and Mizoram states in northeastern India. Officials from both sides, including chief ministers, have accused each other of provoking violence. The firing incident follows months of simmering tensions over a long-running border dispute between the 2 states. Meanwhile, the chief of India's weather department says climate change is to blame for extreme rainfall, causing deadly flooding across western Maharashtra and other parts of the country. People are clearing up in the aftermath of severe flooding, which forced authorities to move over 230,000 people to safer places. Footage from Kolhapur showed farm machinery and diggers totally submerged in flood waters. Scientists have long said that climate change will lead to extreme weather conditions. It comes after the army was called in to evacuate residents stranded by severe flooding in China's Henan province, and as beds were carried by staff from a hospital in Myanmar, where heavy rains are worsening an already dangerous COVID-19 outbreak. North and South Korea have restored a communication hotline that was cut off by Pyongyang in 2020. According to the South's presidential office, the leaders of both countries have agreed to rebuild trust and improve ties. North Korea cut the hotline in June 2020 as relations soured after a failed summit between the 2 countries. At least 1 person has died and 12 others have been injured in Germany after an explosion at a chemicals park in Leverkusen. The blast and ensuing fire took place at 7:40 GMT and plumes of black smoke could be seen rising from the building. The local crisis ministry called the event one of extreme danger and told residents to stay inside and keep doors and windows closed. 5 people have been reported missing. A A sandstorm as high as 100 meters has engulfed several northwestern cities in China. Dramatic footage released by Chinese state broadcaster showed giant clouds of dust enveloping the ancient city of Dunhuang and Aksay Kazakh Autonomous County, which are both located on the fringes of the Gobi Desert. The sandstorm also turned the sky yellow and reduced the visibility to less than 5 meters in some areas. And finally, a new app powered by artificial intelligence claims to know what cats are feeling. Called Tably, the app uses a type of facial recognition software for cats based on ear position, eye narrowing, head position, and even whisker change. Experts in feline well-being argue the app will help cat owners as well as graduate vets to better understand cats' psychology. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Team Nigeria participated in 3 sports, table tennis, basketball and badminton, as the ongoing Olympic Games, which officially began on Friday, enters day 7. Reigning African champions, the D-Tigers, put up a good fight against the US basketball team, losing 72-81 in the preliminary round Group B opener at the Saitama Super Arena in Tokyo. The team will be back on the court on Friday for their second Group B match against the French team. In table tennis, Nigeria's medal hope and Africa's top-ranked player Aaron Okodri suffered a surprise defeat in the men's singles after a 2-4 loss to Brazil's Gustavo Zuboy in the 3rd round. And that sports news is back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Ayotunde. And the main news again. Central Bank of Nigeria today suspended the sale of foreign exchange to Bureau de change operators, accusing them of being money laundering agents, and vowed to deal without pity with erring banks. That's the news at 10 to 9. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Stay safe.